In this video of the Beacon Hill Dollhouse construction, I'm going to go over Section B, walls and floors. Just as in Section A, I first look at the R&P section to restore and prepare the pieces that are needed for this area. And so just in general, I follow the instructions fairly meticulously, and I try to just keep it constrained just to the pieces that I need, because I think if you start to remove too many pieces, you're going to lose your mind. I mean, there's a lot of pieces here, and eventually they're going to get lost. So I would suggest keeping it restricted just to the section. So I once again remove the pieces from the sheets, sand them down, sand down all the edges. And if it's some of the pieces that you pop out of it are actually kind of nice pieces sometimes, and I never quite know how I might intend to use some of those pieces in the future, because what if I need it for some spare parts? So if it's a good piece, I will keep it. I don't really try to discard too much of it. For all the pieces in this section that are going to be walls, I put my primer paint on both sides. So first prime one side, let it dry, turn them over, prime the other side. For the extra two pieces that are going to become flooring, I stained the side that was going to be the flooring, and then on the opposite side I painted that. Then when I'm ready, I have all the pieces that were stained, and I start putting my polyurethane coats on it. So I start with one polyurethane coat, sand it down, have light sanding, put a second coat, another light sanding, and then a third coat of the polyurethane. And this just gives it a nice finish. It gets rid of some of the rough edges, the little bubbles that you see in there, and just makes it more of a furniture type finish. Next, it's time for assembly. So I've followed the instructions kind of step by step to put the pieces together. So either gluing or not gluing as so instructed, and then waiting until that one was ready before preparing the next section. So one of the things that I always do before ever gluing it is doing kind of like a dry fit, because the instructions are not always perfectly clear in my mind. So I have to kind of like figure out how these pieces are going to come together, and I want to make sure that I understand clearly how it's coming together before I even want to put the glue in. So the dry fit will help you to determine if you need to make any little adjustments to the piece. So sometimes you try to put them together and they just don't fit very well. So sometimes I go in and make a little adjustment to them. I'll sand down this piece or that piece, so that way I get a nice good fit. So I know it's going to be a pretty good fit before I glue it together. I don't want to have the glue on there and then realize, oh, this isn't coming together very well. The other thing the dry fit helps with is knowing which edges are going to be butting up to what piece. So that way you'll kind of know where to put the glue. So if you do want to put some glue on ahead of time, you'll know kind of where to put it. So one thing about gluing, and I guess it's probably just a matter of personal preference, but sometimes a lot of times what I would do is first put the glue down in maybe a little plastic bin, and then I use like a paintbrush, and then I actually brush it on to the piece, and this way I get just the right amount of coverage that I need for adherence, and not a lot of extra that needs to be cleaned up after joining the two pieces together. The other thing that you can see in these images is I do use a variety of different tools to join the sections together. So if possible, I do try to use the quick grip vice grips. As long as it fits somewhere, around the piece where I need to join it together, I'll use those, because they do give a nice firm grip while the glue is drying. And I know that I can put it in a nice square edge, during that drying phase. If it is a larger area that I just can't get the vice grip around, I will try to use the strapping. So those are really handy tools. And then I'll also make good use of the masking tape, because there are just so many situations where I can't fit anything else. But the masking tape, I can pretty much get to fit anywhere. You just put it in any kind of configuration you need, and to try to force the two pieces together. I did find that connecting some of the walls and the floors together was a little bit challenging in this part of the construction. These are big pieces, and sometimes you have to kind of force some of these together a little bit. It seems a little unnatural at times, but especially like where I was trying to get some of the bay window areas together. So where the walls met the floor slots and getting some of those in, I had to kind of do a little bit of encouragement. This is where the mallet came in handy. So a lot of times I would take like a spare piece of the plywood from the kit to protect the surface, and then I would just kind of bang it with the mallet to get that into place. The other thing, so as I started to get up to the third floor level, so putting the third floor in, things were a little bit wonky. Like it seemed like the walls and the floor weren't quite meeting together as snugly as I would like. So this is where the strapping clamp comes in real handy. So I actually used two of these at a time right here, where I had one wrapped all the way around the perimeter, and then you just keep tightening it up, and it does help to kind of square things up. Then I had another one kind of going in the opposite direction to try to force it together that way. This way, when it dries, you're hopefully in a nice square position around the body of the house. I didn't want to later run into a situation where I was like, oh my gosh, I should have done something better, and there could be ramifications for not doing it as well, early in an early stage of the construction. Once you complete this section of assembly, it can actually be quite satisfying. You see all three levels, and it is starting to take on the form of a real house. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for watching.